Today we're going over stories of revenge so total, so consuming, that they didn't just settle a score, they reshaped history itself. It's the year 945, and a procession of finely dressed nobles is being carried through the gates of Kiev, lifted up on the shoulders of strangers, who smile warmly as they walk. The nobles wave to the crowds gathering along the road, certain they are about to become the most powerful men in the region overnight. They have no idea they are about to be lowered into the ground, while still very much alive, boat and all, and that the woman waiting for them at the palace already considers every one of them dead. To understand how a grieving widow turned a wedding proposal into the opening act of a multi-year massacre, we have to rewind 2 months to the death of her husband. Olga of Kiev Prince Igor of Kiev had a tribute problem. Every year, he rode out into the forests with his retinue and demanded payment from the Drevlian tribes under his rule: furs, honey, silver, whatever they had on hand. It was a brutal system, but a predictable one, and predictable was usually enough to keep a conquered people from rebelling outright. The problem is that Igor gets greedy. 1 year after already collecting a full season's tribute and turning his men back toward home, he changes his mind, wheels his horse around, and rides straight back into Drevlian territory, demanding even more. The Drevlians hold an emergency council that night. Their leader, a man named Prince Mal, lays out the situation in terms everyone in the room can understand. If a wolf gets into a flock of sheep, he says he will carry off the entire flock one by one unless somebody kills him first. The Drevlians vote, almost unanimously, to kill the wolf. Igor and his small escort are ambushed deep in the forest, dragged from their horses, and tied by the legs to 2 birch saplings that have been bent all the way down to the ground. When the ropes holding the trees are finally cut, the trunks snap upright with tremendous force, and Igor is torn apart in front of his own men. Back in Kiev, news of the murder reaches Igor's widow, a quiet, calculating woman named Olga, who is now ruling the city as regent in place of her infant son. The Drevlians, riding high off the fact that they just killed a reigning prince and faced 0 consequences for it, decide to push their luck even further. They send a delegation to Olga with a bold proposal. "Marry our Prince Mal," they tell her. "Unite our 2 peoples under 1 crown and finally put an end to all this bad blood between us." Olga listens to the offer without a single flicker of anger crossing her face. She tells the delegation that she's deeply honored by the proposal, and that tomorrow, to show the people of Kiev just how seriously she takes this new alliance, she will personally have her own men carry the delegation through the city streets in their boat, a ceremonial honor normally reserved only for visiting royalty. The Drevlians, flattered well beyond suspicion, happily agree and climb aboard their finest vessel early the next morning. Olga's men lift the entire boat onto their shoulders, but instead of carrying it through the streets, as promised, they march it directly to a deep pit that had been quietly dug overnight in the palace courtyard. The boat tips sideways, the men inside tumble down into the hole, and Olga's soldiers begin shoveling dirt on top of them while they're still very much alive and screaming. She watches the whole thing unfold from a balcony above without saying a single word. And she's still not finished. Olga sends another message back to the Drevlians, claiming the first envoys simply weren't distinguished enough to properly represent their people in a matter this important. "Send your best men this time," she insists, "your most respected elders and nobles, so that this union can be made official the right way." Eager to correct their apparent mistake, the Drevlians comply without hesitation. When this second, far more prestigious delegation arrives in Kiev, Olga insists they bathe and rest from their long journey before any formal proceedings begin, and personally walks them to a bathhouse herself. The moment every last man is inside, her guards quietly bar the doors from the outside and set the entire building ablaze. The nobles burn alive together, pounding uselessly on doors that were never going to open. Even that isn't enough to satisfy her. Olga then travels into Drevlian territory in person, telling Prince Mal's remaining people that she wishes to hold a proper funeral feast at her late husband's grave before the marriage can officially move forward, framing it as one final gesture of peace and closure. Having heard absolutely nothing about the grim fate of either previous delegation, the Drevlians agree without a hint of suspicion. At the feast, Olga makes sure the wine and mead never stop flowing, raising toast after toast to the bright future of their new alliance. By the time the Drevlians are too drunk to even stand upright, Olga's soldiers, hidden in the surrounding tree line for hours, fall on them without warning and kill an estimated 5,000 men on the spot. Word of the massacre finally reaches Iskorostan, the Drevlian capital, and the few survivors left barricade themselves inside the city walls, refusing to so much as speak with another one of Olga's messengers ever again. She lays siege to the city herself, but Iskorostan was built specifically to withstand exactly this kind of prolonged attack, and the walls hold strong for months on end. So Olga tries one final, almost gentle-sounding trick. She sends word that she has no further interest in destroying the city, only in receiving one small symbolic tribute as a true final peace offering. Just 3 pigeons and 3 sparrows from every single household still standing inside the walls. Relieved that the nightmare finally seems to be ending, the exhausted Drevlians happily round up the birds and hand them over without a fight. That very night, Olga's men quietly tie smoldering bundles of sulfur and dry tinder to the legs of every single bird, and release them all into the darkness at once. Every bird instinctively flies straight home to the exact nest it came from, and within minutes, Iskorostan is burning from 1,000 different points simultaneously. Rooftops, stables, granaries, all catching fire at once, with nowhere left to safely run. The people who don't burn alive are cut down or dragged off into slavery as they flee through the gates. The wolf, as it turns out, really did come back for the rest of the flock after all. Olga's revenge took less than a single year from start to finish, but the legend of it followed her for the rest of her life, whispered about in royal courts from Kiev all the way to Constantinople. Strangely enough, she would later convert to Christianity and eventually be canonized as a saint. A detailed history seems to have made peace with far more easily than the burned bathhouse ever suggested it would. The political fallout lasted just as long as the legend did. Olga's campaign didn't just punish the Drevlians for one prince's murder, it quietly consolidated Kievan authority over every neighboring tribe that had been weighing whether to test the new regime themselves. Word of what happened to Iskorostan traveled along the exact same trade routes the Drevlians once used to deliver their tribute, and for the rest of Olga's long reign, not a single other tribe under her rule ever dared repeat that particular mistake twice. Thanks for watching this video. Subscribe